The 1940s. The 1940s. The 1940s. The 1940s. Oh, we just got out of a Great Depression when a man thought he'd start an oppression of Jews and blacks and gays. Oh, don't you love learn about the good old days? That old man Hitler was taking over, and the Japs hurt Uncle Sam's shoulder. Oh, don't you love living about the good old days? But what we're really focusing on is about my grandpa and grandma. I'm interviewing my dad for this project. Where should we start? Well, my grandpa was in the war, so my first question is, what kind of conditions were he in, or was he in?
When he was in North Africa fighting Rommel, because they were tank division, he said during the daytime the temperatures go up to 120, 25 degrees. At night it would drop down into the 80s, and he said your blood would be so thin, he said you'd be freezing to death at night. But he said the hardest Germans to fight were the younger Germans that had been so indoctrinated in the in the Nazi regime.
It's amazing how he got through all those rough times, and he got out with barely any scratches, and he barely had anything to defend himself with. But I'm wondering, what special and unique memories did he ever tell you about?
England at port, and he said it was kind of funny. They docked at a place that was called Tate Wharf. And, you know, people said, and everybody called my daddy, his nickname was Buck. He said, Buck, we didn't know you had relatives over here in England. He said, yeah, I'm English. And he said there were quite a bit of Tates that, you know, prominent Tates that were from England. One story that I always shared with me was they'd been fighting Germans and it was dead of winter, snow everywhere, and they come up on this farmhouse. They checked it out and everything. They went in it and they lit them a fire and said these GIs were drying themselves out and everything. And said his first warm place they'd had in weeks.
Oh.
And said about midnight he was asleep. He woke up and he looked at all these guys. Says, "All right, we're going." They said, "No, Sarge, we're warm. It's good here." He said, "No, we got to go." He said, "I got a bad feeling." So he got them up. They said they not got a few hundred yards away from that house, and a mortar round hit the house and blew it up. He was trying to get back home, and they had got news that cause Grandma and Grandpa lived over in a little community called Landers Chapel, which is close to Lincoln. Well, they got news that a Charles Edward Tate had been killed in combat from Lincoln, and they thought my dad was had been killed, so they were all upset. You know, they thought that he wasn't coming home, and he showed up at home, and he said in the process of trying to get home he was hitchhiking, and he said he was in a rainstorm and trying to get home, and he was thumbing. He said he couldn't get nobody to give him a ride, and he would never ever give a hitchhiker a ride. He said, I couldn't. After World War II, and I'd fought for my country all those years, and I couldn't even get somebody to give me a ride. But when they found out, when he got home and everything, there was another Charles Edward Tate that lived in Lincoln.
Oh my gosh!
And it was a mistaken identity.
That was
it was weird.
Sounds scary. I know. If I was Grandma, I'd be devastated, but I'd be overjoyed too. Speaking of Grandma, what was it like for her without Grandpa? There wasn't anything else to do, like no school.
Mama always talked about everything was rationed. You got coupons to be able to get this and that. She always talked about toothpaste. You got a tube of toothpaste, and they had these little things that looked like a key. They called them a key, and they put it on the end of it, and they would roll it up so tight they wouldn't have no waste. And the only way that you could get another tube of toothpaste, you had to take that old one back with you to the store to prove, because people, like any time, people would, if they could get a bunch of stuff, they'd buy it and try to make money on it, called black market.
Yeah.
but their gas was rationed, and they had blackouts and stuff. Her life wasn't too bad because she's lived at home with her mother and Grandma McGinnis. Even though she lived in town, she had a milk cow and a big garden and all that.
Oh.
And so Mama said it wasn't that bad. The worst part was, being away from, Daddy.
Yeah.
And but
Well, what did she do to pass the time?
well, I know she always told me that her mama always had beautiful flowers and everything,
Yeah.
and to be able to get in the movie, her and her sister would take bouquets of flowers to the movie theater, and the guy that owned the movie theater would let them go in free because they brought flowers to them.
Oh.
Back then, in like the where you got your ticket and your popcorn and all that kind of stuff, they had like the lobby. They had tables and they had fresh flowers and everything. So that was one thing that they done.
Well, what movies were popular back then, since we're on that?
Shoot, I was watching Humphrey Bogart movies. I can name some of the actors: Jean Harlow, Bob Hope, which Bob Hope was big in the USO for the troops. Martha Ray was a singer, movie star, a female that was worked big with the USO. My daddy said he really enjoyed. He got to see her when he was overseas. Uh, Not a whole lot of stuff to do, because the war effort. Mama never did really work. I think she told me one time she only worked in the public for like 8 weeks in her life. She was always a homemaker and everything.
Well, that's my video. I hope you enjoyed it. I know I sure did.